What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in Cold War's multiplayer. And in today's episode, we're going to be covering the brand new tactical rifle, and this is the CARV.2. Starting it off, as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, which is 39-35, and this means it's going to be a 4 to 5 shot kill, which is interesting because this is a 3-round burst assault rifle, which means you can't get a 1 burst kill, at least not to the body. As for headshots though, we do get a standard headshot multiplier of 1.4, which takes our headshot damage profile to a 54-49, and what this means is up close, if every single bullet hits the head, you can now get a 1 burst kill or a 3-shot kill, but every single bullet needs to hit the head, so it's not super practical in most situations. As for our rate of fire, this is 909 rounds per minute, which is right in line with the M16, but that's the rate of fire within the burst. We also have a burst delay of about 125 milliseconds. And this burst delay is significantly faster than both the M16 as well as the AUG, and this is why it is going to take you 2 bursts to kill. This would be completely overpowered if this had a 1 burst kill potential. As for our barrels, with the rapid fire barrel, we can improve our overall rate of fire by 8%. Keep in mind this helps with both the rate of fire within the burst as well as the burst delay. Then the strike team barrel improves our rate of fire by 13%, and then finally the titanium barrel improves it by 16%. And what this means for our time to kill potential is up close, our base time to kill is 350 milliseconds, and then at range, it's 400 milliseconds. And it turns out with the rapid fire barrel, this doesn't boost our rate of fire enough to notice any change whatsoever to our time to kill potential at 60 FPS, which is what most of the consoles are playing at. And even on a PC with a higher frame rate, you probably still wouldn't notice any difference to the time to kill. However, with the strike team barrel as well as the titanium barrel, these ones do give you a noticeably faster time to kill, but there isn't enough discrepancy between these two to make them really too much different from each other. So either way you go, strike team or titanium, you're getting the same experience time to kill change. It's also worth noting, if we do manage to hit 3 headshots and get that 1 burst kill, our time to kill potential is insane at 133 milliseconds. Moving on, let's have a look at our bullet velocity, and the CARV.2 has the slowest bullet velocity in the TAC rifle category at 605 meters per second. This is still a respectable bullet velocity, but I would be careful about using attachments that lower this much more than that. And a big reason for this is the CARV.2 has an excellent range profile. Our maximum damage range carries out to 45 meters, which is way better than the AUG and the M16. And therefore, this is a very viable gun for longer ranges. I would even say it really excels at longer ranges. As for hardcore modes, I didn't mention this earlier, but this will always be a 1 bullet kill in hardcore modes. Not a 1 burst kill, but literally just 1 bullet within a burst has to hit them at any range and you will get a kill. Then getting into Hipfire, no surprises here. It's the same Hipfire spread as all of the other tactical rifles, and that's to say that it's pretty horrible. You generally don't want to be hipfiring this unless you're in a desperate situation or unless you're using an attachment to significantly improve your hipfire. Then taking a look at our idle sway, there is almost no movement while aiming down sight with this, which is great. You're going to have that great first shot accuracy, and then we'll have a look at our recoil, which as you can see here, if you are firing it as fast as possible, your bursts will be jumping around a little bit. There is definitely some horizontal recoil mixed in there, which is nearly impossible to compensate for, especially with this super fast fire rate within each burst. But without attachments, this gun does have a decent amount of recoil, I would say. Now, I did want to take this a step further and just look at our individual burst recoil. So I just fired these 5 bursts on the wall here, trying to keep the same level of point of aim. And you'll notice with 2 of the bursts, it actually kicked downward for at least 1 of the bullets within the burst. So that's something to be aware of with this gun, is sometimes it may have that random bullet that hits below your point of aim. But overall, just looking at individual bursts, this is pretty accurate, especially considering the fact that this is without any attachments and it only gets better from here. Now let's move on to handling, and our aim down sight time is 350 milliseconds, which is pretty standard for a tactical rifle. Then our stated sprint out time in game is 300 milliseconds. However, our experienced sprint out time is just a little bit faster at 284 milliseconds. After that, let's have a look at our reload time, which is a little bit slower than average at 2.02 seconds, but it's not too far outside the realm of the reload time of the other tactical rifles. And then you can also see all of the different reload times for each one of the magazine attachments here, but I gotta say, at least for Cold War's multiplayer, I don't see much of a reason to use any of the magazine attachments. This thing has a base magazine capacity of 45 rounds, which for a 3-round burst gun is way more than enough, even if you're dealing with several enemies at a time. But finally, for the base stats of this gun without attachments, we've got our movement speeds, which are all just standard for tactical rifles. Our base movement speed and our sprint movement speed are not too bad, and then our aim down sight movement speed is quite slow at just 30%. Now, before we get into my recommended attachment combinations for this gun, there are a couple unique barrel attachments I want to have a look at, and these are the Strike Team barrel as well as the Task Force barrel, because with both of these, they actually increase your damage. However, we don't get the same percentage increase, so I'm going to look at them individually here. With the Strike Team barrel, we get a 5% boost to our damage, and this gives us a damage profile of 4136. And basically what this does is in your maximum damage range, it now makes it so all you need to do is land 2 headshots mixed in with a body shot to get that 3-shot kill now, instead of hitting all 3 to the head. So it does make it a little bit more forgiving when it comes to those headshots. Then let's have a look at our Task Force barrel, which gives us an 8% boost to our damage. So technically we get a slightly higher damage profile than the Strike Team barrel. However, it has the same effect. It's now going to take you 2 headshots mixed in with a body shot to get a 1-burst kill, instead of all 3 hitting the head. Now, unlike the Strike Team barrel though, the Task Force barrel does increase your recoil, but I did want to show you guys the comparison with the Task Force barrel compared to no attachments at all. And as you can see, there is a little bit more recoil within each burst. You can see the bullets tend to be spread out a little bit more than the base, but it's not really an extreme change here. It's still very manageable with that Task Force barrel, especially if you're going to be using other attachments like the Field Agent foregrip, for instance, to cut down on that even more. And with that, it's finally time to move into some great attachment combinations that I'm liking so far with the CARV.2. And for the first one I'm going to share for you guys, this one's more so designed for an aggressive playstyle, so most of your gunfights are going to be close to mid-range. We're not sitting back and picking people off at range. And with this, we're using the standard silencer just to make sure we don't lose too much bullet velocity, and we really don't need that extra vertical recoil from the agency suppressor, so that's why we're just going with the regular one. Then we're using the Strike Team barrel, mainly for the fire rate boost to cut down on that burst delay a bit, and that way it is going to be improving your time to kill up close. And after that, we're going to be using the Field Agent foregrip, which when we have this equipped, you can see that we've got very little recoil within each burst. Like, even though I've built this mainly for close ranges, you can still stretch this out and pick people off at range just fine, just because it's so accurate with this one single attachment added on it. But after that, we've got the Airborne Elastic Wrap just to give us the fastest aim down sight time possible so we can really snap on the target quickly, because we definitely don't want to hipfire with this. And then finally, we've got the Raider Pad, which is mainly to help with our sprint out time, but it is also nice to get a boost to our aim walking movement speed. Now with this setup, our range value is 34 meters. Our velocity is reduced a bit because of that silencer, down to 514 meters per second, but that's more than enough if you are keeping yourself relatively close to your targets. You just probably don't want to be picking people off like across satellite, for instance. And then you can see our reload time is standard, and then our sprint out and aim down sight time are both reduced nicely, so you can snap on a target quite quickly even if you're coming out of sprint. Moving on, let's have a look at our second class setup, and I like this one more. This one is a much more versatile setup. You can really pick people off at long ranges with this, and it still holds its own just fine up close as well. But with this, we got the Cobra Red Dot, just because I feel like this is a nice versatile sight where it's a little bit better than the other red dots for stretching out to longer ranges, but it doesn't screw you over if you end up in a close quarter situation, because you won't be aimed down sight way too far. Then we got the Agency Silencer here just to give us the best recoil possible, plus we can afford to lose some bullet velocity because we're using the Task Force barrel, which gives us a big boost to our bullet velocity. Now once again, we are using the Field Agent foregrip on this, especially because we're using the Task Force barrel, and just taking a look at our 1-burst recoil, this thing is nearly pinpoint accurate. Almost every bullet goes into the same hole. There's only a very minor spread here at 14 meters. And therefore you should have no problem picking people off across any one of the multiplayer maps in this game. But finally, this just leaves us with the Airborne Elastic Wrap, just because I like having a nice snappy aim down sight time. So with this, our range value is incredible at about 61 meters, which is great. Our bullet velocity is very respectable at 726 meters per second. Reload time is standard because we're just using that standard 45 round mag. The one thing to be aware of with this setup is it's not built for sprint out time. You don't want to get caught sprinting, but that just requires a playstyle adjustment to account for that, and our aim down sight time is nice and snappy. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the CARV.2 tactical rifle. As for my thoughts on this, I'm actually pretty impressed. I was really worried they were just going to add another generic burst rifle that would perform basically the same as the existing ones, the AUG and the M16. However, I like what they did here where this doesn't really have a 1-burst kill potential, at least not to the body, but it's got a super forgiving burst delay. So while it doesn't have that same ridiculous time to kill potential as the other burst guns, it's got a lot of other things going for it that makes it a very viable gun to be using. Now, I don't think this is an absolute top tier gun and completely dominant or anything, but I do think it is a very good choice and it's fun to use. Of course, those are just my thoughts. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about the CARV.2 so far in Cold War's multiplayer? Do you really like it, hate it, or are you somewhere in between? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.